Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. My dad wanted to help the neighbors. They rejected his help and paid $350 to clear the snow. The second story. I started skipping work because my boss didn't give me days off. The third story. Car dealer screwed up because he didn't want to talk to my wife. Today's first story is snow shoveling dramas. I am reminded of a story that happened while I was living at home. You may enjoy it. On mobile and names have been forgotten, so I'm gonna make them up. This happened in the late 90s, early 2000s for reference. My dad owned a snowblower. During the wicked weather this side of the Rockies, he would use his blower to take care of the sidewalks in front of everyone on both sides of our block. Most of the families on my block were either seniors, those with small families, or younger couples that inherited their dead relatives' homes. Everyone knew everyone, and they understood that my dad was doing this as a courtesy. He was in his 50s and just trying to be a good neighbor. So my neighbors 2 doors down divorce and sell their house to a family from out of state. Fake name time. Picards sounds good. I know they were from a snowy state, but I don't remember where. They moved in during the late summer, close to the start of the school year. A couple months later, our state has a massive snowstorm. It would snow for nearly 24 hours for almost the entire winter. You would shovel and clear snow just to get another dump, and you'd have to keep going and going. We had something like 350% of average snowfall that month alone. So my dad is out there during the first big dump with his snowblower, just taking care of business as he's nice, and the third house down had an occupant that walked on arm crutches. He just made a path from our house to theirs. No big deal, been taking care of this for a while now. He gets done and heads to work. He gets home late most nights, so he's not expecting anyone to be at the door as he walks in. Lo and behold, the Picards must have been watching out the window for him as they walk up on him as he opens the door. "Hey, did you shovel our walk?" "Huh? Our walk, the one that runs in front of our house." "Oh yeah, I did your sidewalk." "Well, we're not paying you for the shoddy work you did. You sprayed our tree with snow." My dad is out of it after a 10+ hour day, commute not included, so he's not getting what's happening. "I'm sorry? You should be. That tree's too small to handle that much snow blown on it. You need to blow it somewhere else." As my dad was one that religiously read city bylaws, he knew the time frame for removing snow and where you could put shoveled snow. The city doesn't allow you to blow snow into the street because it messes with the plow's ability to take care of the streets. But Mr. Picard insisted that he had to blow the snow elsewhere. Knowing what he knew, my dad directed the snow into the only other spot available, his driveway. A driveway that's almost 45 degrees down from the carport too. Or so it seemed. Wicked steep either way. So the next day, the neighbor comes by to complain again. He didn't know that a small snowfall can get cars stuck in that driveway, let alone what he had plus a snowblower. His car got stuck halfway in the street and he had to get it towed. If my dad were home, he could have saved them the tow fee, but Picard didn't know that. So Picard is fuming and saying he's going to do his own walk from now on. My dad tries to tell him he's just assisting the neighbor on the other side, and he doesn't charge for being a good neighbor, etc. It's cold and my dad wants the door shut, but Picard doesn't want to step in, and my dad doesn't have his shoes or coat. So Picard just says, "I know what I'm doing. I'm a grown man. I can deal with a little fluff." The next day, my dad knocks on the neighbor's door and tries to tell Picard about how strict the city is about snow removal, and how he has 24 hours from the start of snowfall to get things removed, etc. He wrote down a website where he can go to read the rules, but Picard didn't take it. The city was constantly driving down our block for reasons I won't go into here. The Picards were doing a semi-sufficient job manually shoveling snow away properly. But then, October in my state has a big teachers' conference, and most families go out of town for a late camping or early hunting trip. So did the Picards. They're gone for 4 days during the worst storm of the season. They hadn't arranged to have the walk shoveled, and the snow was piling so high, city inspectors came out. Parents and neighbors complained to the city that they couldn't walk down our street. It was obvious that the walks were being taken care of, so why not theirs? The city posted a 48-hour compliance notice, but it would be 72 before the Picards got back to town. The city charged them with hazardous conditions and failure to maintain property accessible to the public. On top of the labor fee to shovel the walk, it was like $350 easily. The city kept a watchful eye on the property for the rest of the winter for any issues from then on. Once the city has you on their radar, it's hard to be done with them. The cherry on top of the entire situation? There's a knock on the door in early November same year. One of the Picard kids handed my sister an envelope and just walked away. We give it to my mom, and inside there's a note saying something like this: "This is for the shoveling you did already." There was a $100 bill inside. My family tried to return it, but they never answered the door. So we used it to take our large family out to our favorite buffet later that week. Thank you, Picards, for paying for a free service. We spent it well. The next story is giving my old boss his rightful due. So, about 7 or 8 months ago, I worked for a private contractor, mostly just grunt work. Carry this, destroy that, etc. Every now and again I would get a specific job. Well, on this occasion I had to install a vapor barrier, an insulation in a crawl space, the tight dirt floor space with a lot of pipes that's under your house. So I put my cheap crawl space suit on that's already ripping, as I kneel down to soldier crawl under the house. I grab a flashlight and the rolls of plastic sheets. I'm rolling the vapor barrier out and staking it down as I go. As I'm pushing the stake into the dirt, I felt something run across my hand. I just about Kool-Aid man right through the floor above me. But of course I didn't. I grabbed my flashlight and started looking around. And in between just about every floor joist I can see dozens, if not hundreds of eyes reflecting light back at me. I look directly above my head, and there's like 3 tablespoon-sized spiders, staring right into my soul. I suppress the second wave of panic and try to calmly make my way out of the crawl space, and I can't help but notice every pair of eyes on me as I'm leaving. After my successful noping out, I called my boss and told him what was up. He told me something along the lines of, "They're more scared of you. You're like 1,000 times their size." And after a good 5 minutes of calling me a P, he says, "The faster you get it done, the faster you can get out." So the naive youngin' I was decided he was right, and what could they possibly do to me? I laugh at that now. Anyway, I'm sure you can see where this is going. I managed to get the vapor barrier down without a problem, other than the permanent and immense feeling of dread and impending doom. But as I was stuffing the insulation in between the floor joist where the critters were hanging out, I felt a blunt sting on the back of my hand. I immediately knew what it was. I crawled out again, called my boss again, and after another 5-minute phone, I headed back in, again. Also on the phone call, he told me I had to head to another house and prep the living room to be painted. Then I could go home. I was back inside the crawl space, absolutely hating my career choice at the moment. But I finished the crawl space, drove 10 minutes and prepped the living room. I drove the work van back to his house, but got in my car and decided I was too tired to sit in a waiting room for hours on end. I know how stupid that was. But went home, showered vigorously, and went to bed. When I woke up in the morning, my hand was a little swollen, but nothing to be concerned about. I went to work and got sent a house in the middle of nowhere to load 6x6 posts into a trailer to be used at another job site. Almost as soon as I started to work and sweat, my hands started to ache, and then burn, and then eventually blissfully went numb. I didn't bother calling my boss, just texted him, "I need to go to the hospital." I got a call about 20 minutes later as I'm pulling my car out of his driveway. "I'll save you his 30-minute tangent. In conclusion," he said, "if you're not feeling well, then don't come in. Because right now you're wasting my time, and I'm not paying you for an hour and 15 minutes worth of work. Be at my house tomorrow 6 a.m. ready to work the whole day." And that, folks, was effing it. I called off the next 3 days due to my hand. I could have worked after the first day I left early. The antibiotics and ointment the doctors prescribed me worked wonderfully. But why should I have if I wasn't feeling 100%? Anyway, I started looking for a job the same day I left from the hospital. After that, I called out for everything from back pain to an effing hangnail. I only lasted a month and a half after this, but in that month I called off at least 15 times. The only notice being a text message that he would see when he first wakes up. Normally, it wouldn't have been a big deal having one employee calling out ritualistically, but I was the only person working for him at the time who could or would drive the van that had all of his tools and equipment in it. So the days I called out, he had to leave his shiny black diesel lifted Ford F-250 at home, and he would have to drive the work van. Honestly, I was trying to get fired at that point, and I love saying, "Sorry, boss, I just didn't want to waste your time." A few things I should mention. The job was under the table, and that's why I didn't get fired immediately for attendance, and why my boss was able to just not pay me. After looking at a few different spiders on the internet, I think the ones in the crawl space were wolf spiders. I'm not positive, but they look pretty similar. Oh, and just in case it wasn't clear, there must have been upwards of 200 spiders in the crawl space. I wasn't much of an arachnophobe beforehand, but after that I can't even think about a spider without getting chills, and what I can only describe as a war flashback. The last story is going along with a sexist car salesman. My wife and I have used a salesman's sexism against him, and it was so satisfying. It was when we bought our first new car. We were nervous that we didn't know what we were doing, so we did a lot of research. It helps that my wife is a librarian. When we got to the dealer, the salesman would only talk to me. I was all buddy-buddy with the guy too. but he completely ignored my wife. We went along. The dealer was running a promotion where they would give you X dollars for your trade-in, no matter what condition. If you can drive it on the lot kind of deal. Of course, they just don't discount off of MSRP in those cases, so it's a gimmick. When we walked in, the salesman asked which car was ours parked outside, and then asked if we were trading in. I said no, we weren't trading that car in. You can see where this was going. As I said, we had done our research and knew what a fair price was for the car we wanted. At the time, Edmunds had detailed dealer-level price information for many new cars, including all the various ways a dealer gets paid and what their true costs are. The invoice price is not their true cost. I negotiated the price, since he wouldn't talk to my wife, and we arrived at a number I thought was fair, actually. We got a good deal at that point. Everything was going smoothly as he wrote up our agreement, until he confirmed that we didn't have a trade-in. I said no, we were trading in a car, just not the one we drove into the dealer in. He literally froze for a few seconds looking down at the form, his hand hovering over the page. He asked the make, model, and year of our trade-in, and when I told him, he sputtered and balked. The car we were trading in was on its last legs. I'd had it all during college, and it was old before I bought it. It was definitely past its prime. I said, I thought you were running a promotion where the quality of the trade-in doesn't matter. I asked him if he would have given us a higher price if he knew we had a trade-in. My wife said under her breath, that's sleazy. He heard, as she intended him to. He then tried to renegotiate the price. We knew from our research that if they gave us the price we had already agreed on, and they honored the trade-in deal, that they would be losing money. So we were willing to move a bit, but we wanted to take our time. He was visibly nervous. Every time he tried a new way of asking for a higher price, I would say something like, I understand what you're saying, with a sympathetic look. Then I would look at my wife, and she would look back at me and silently shake her head no. I'd then look back at the salesman and shrug and say, I don't think that's gonna work. He was stuck. She was the one standing in the way of him getting out of his predicament, but he hadn't talked to her at all. He had barely even acknowledged her presence. He just couldn't start talking to her now when we were negotiating. Oh, and I even got to use the classic car salesman line. What do I have to do for you to put me in this car today? We finally agreed to raise the price to an amount that, after figuring in the trade-in, was what we had thought was their break-even price. We hadn't expected to get that low of a price, and we also got them to install a nice aftermarket sound system. It's the best deal we've ever gotten on a new car. Honestly, we're not the best negotiators individually, but that day, we made one hell of a team. Subscribe, hit the bell button, and have a good day.